Illman and Mike Beer talking about Todd Pletcher's Kentucky Derby hopeful Audible, a New York bred that has just blown away the competition in 2 starts at Gulfstream Park this winter, including this win in the Florida Derby. 2 races in a row now, Mike, with career best 99 Beyers speed figures. That puts him right in the mix with the best 3-year-olds in the country, but he got a very good setup in this Florida Derby.
Yeah, he sure did. That was a fast pace in this race. He was able to take back off of it. He got a clean trip on the outside. He also happened to be much the best in this race, though. He took it over with no problem. He finished clear of a pretty decent and up-and-coming horse in Hofburg. It was another good performance for this horse. I mean, he's run back-to-back really strong races for Pletcher at Gulfstream.
What I like to see about the Florida Derby was that this horse has shown now that he can come from out of it if need be. It doesn't matter. Right. In the Holy Bull, he was right up close to the pace. He took it over at about the 5/16 pole, and then he drew away from Free Drop Billy. The Florida Derby showed that if there's a fast pace, he can hang back and finish. My question with you is, A, we've seen Todd improve these horses at Gulfstream Park in the past. Some of them move on to greatness, as Always Dreaming did in last year's Kentucky Derby. Some of them do not do as well when they get away from South Florida. What is your feelings concerning Audible, or is it too early to tell? You saw him in New York.
Yeah, his first 3 races in New York, I mean, he wasn't running against good horses there. Obviously, he's a New York bred. His first 2 starts were against New York breds. He wasn't beating good horses in those races, but you could just see him improve with the added distance. They debuted him sprinting. He got completely outrun in that race. He was a mile out of it. He actually did pretty well to gain a lot of ground into that race, so you felt like this horse could be okay. He won his next 2 starts easily. He improved his figures in those races, but he's really upped his game at Gulfstream, which is sort of what you always feel like these Pletcher horses do all winter long down there. It makes him, to me, it makes him at least a little bit of a tough call because, yeah, it worked for Always Dreaming last year. His Kentucky Derby looks more and more like a fluke every time that horse steps up onto the racetrack now. And otherwise, it does feel like these horses don't always hold their form.
Does it concern you that the Holy Bull and the Florida Derby may not have been the strongest preps this year? We look at the Holy Bull. Free Drop Billy is a very honest horse that will compete in the Kentucky Derby. He hasn't gotten over the hump this year. Right. 'Tis Mischief. We have no idea where he is. Yes, he did beat Enticed in the Holy Bull. The Florida Derby, if you think Hofburg is okay, sure, he's got a lot of upside, but he's still eligible for non-winners of one other than Mississippi ran 3rd in the Florida Derby.
Yeah.
Are you concerned that he is going to be taking a really giant step up in class in the Derby against horses like Justify and Bolt d'Oro and perhaps Mendelssohn?
Well, listen, he's going to be facing, I think, some better horses in Kentucky, but I think he's a good horse, too. So I'm not that worried about that kind of stuff. I'm just more worried if he's going to, carry his improved form out of Gulfstream Park and keep running races like this. I'm not going to be surprised if he does. I think this horse is actually pretty good, and I like what you were sort of referring to before. He showed last time that if he gets outrun, that's okay. He can still make a run from off the pace, and I think that's really going to help this horse going forward.
Are you concerned about pedigree that much in the Kentucky Derby? We've talked about angles, and you've kind of debunked you're really not interested in the UAE Derby, Jinx, or the Curse of Apollo. Are you a pedigree guy when it comes to the Derby? I mean, we have seen pedigrees in the past that don't seem to be, classic pedigrees, and they win. Audible's broodmare sire, Gilded Time, was a very sharp sprinter, but this horse has already handled 1 1/8 and has seemingly improved with distance.
Yeah, as you know, overall, I'm a big believer in pedigree, but as far as the Derby goes, it doesn't really seem like it matters anymore. It will still creep into my mind sometimes if I think horses really aren't bred for it, and maybe it'll be the deciding factor if I'm trying to decide between 2 horses, but I don't know. This horse, he's gone 9 furlongs now, and he was finishing up at the end of that race. I'm not going to worry about it too much.
But in your opinion, a major contender and a must-use in the multiple race wagers?
I don't know if he's a must-use in the multiples for me. We'll see what kind of price he goes off at. I think he's one of the horses, though, that you don't want to just totally dismiss in Kentucky.
Audible, real sharp in his last 2 at Gulfstream for Todd Pletcher, will be one of the favorites in the Kentucky Derby.